We have our first buyout of the season. The Ottawa Senators are buying out Colin White. We'll discuss what this means for their cap and what it means for the player coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have some breaking news from the NHL. We have our first NHL buyout during this current window that's open for buyouts. It runs from July 1 to July the 12th, up until the day before free agency gets underway on July the 13th. So the Ottawa Senators have placed Colin White on unconditional waivers for the purpose of a contract buyout. So a team technically can claim him, but that never happens. It doesn't make sense for teams to do that when they can talk to him as an unrestricted free agent here very shortly and sign him to a new deal without having to take on that existing contract. So certainly Colin White was a promising player taken in the first round, 21st overall in 2015. The Sens had multiple first rounders that year. He, along with Thomas Chabot, were the two main players drafted by the Sens that year. They actually share a birthday as well. Colin White was a player who went on to play a few years at Boston College before signing his pro contract and making the jump to the NHL. He's battled through a lot of injuries and inconsistencies, which is the main reason why we're seeing this here today. Eventually, after getting himself more established, he did have a real promising season, which led, out of his ELC, which led to the contract he has now. And unfortunately for him, he's become an overpaid player who's mostly been in the bottom six, and that's why we're seeing this buyout here today. So he was signed to a 6-year contract, $4.875 million per season. We're 3 years into that, so there's 3 years remaining. So now, because Colin White is under the age of 27, so as I've talked about before during buyouts, essentially he's still in his RFA window. So to be eligible for UFA status in the NHL, you either have to be 27 years of age or have 7 pro years of experience under your belt. So most players usually hit age 27. Before that happens, you get the odd one will be slightly before that if they get into the league at age 19 or whatever that is for your top level elite talent. But for the most part, average player is 27. Well, he's still under that age, so certainly it's a 1/3 buyout as opposed to a 2/3 buyout, which is quite substantial. They'll save over $10 million in actual cash here, and his cap hit will be greatly reduced. However, it'll be stretched out over twice the period of time. So that's how buyouts work. It's either a 1/3 buyout, so 1/3 of the money will be paid over twice the period of time if they're still younger in that RFA window under the age of 27, or if they're 27 or older in those UFA window, then they become a 2/3 buyout, so 2/3 of the remaining money owed over twice the period of time. So the cap hit now, instead of being on the books for the Senators for 3 more years, will be on the books for 6, but it's going to be at a greatly reduced amount. Now, in 5 of the 6 years, the cap hit is only going to be $875,000 here. I'll show you the snapshot here from capfriendly.com outlining this buyout, but in year 3, they're actually going to have a cap credit of just over $600,000. So certainly the way the contract was structured, that year 3 will be a little bit of a bonus for them. So like I said, 5 or 6 years, they'll have a hit of $875,000. Whereas 1 year they're going to have a little extra bonus cushion added to their salary cap. So it's really not that bad. And if you factor in the fact that he's spent a lot of time injured, a lot of time inconsistent play, not putting up the numbers that you expected, as much as he's a very likable player and a very popular player in that locker room, it's something that from a business side makes a ton of sense. He was one of the players I talked about in my video back a couple weeks back, looking at the most likely buyout candidates heading into the buyout window. Started on July the 1st. We've yet to see one. This is our first one. I'm sure we're going to see more. Word has it that Pierre Dorion and the Senators were working hard to try to trade Colin White to move the contract rather than do this, but unfortunately they were not able to find a deal, and teams likely knew that were interested that this was a possibility. Why not kind of force them to do a buyout, which is going to, alleviate them from taking on 3 more years of this contract, and they can sign him as a UFA. There's been a lot of talk that Montreal has been interested. His former agent, Kent Hughes, is the GM there. They could take a 1-year deal now on a show me, prove it kind of contract. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, he can move on again or whatever have you. At least they're not going to be committed long term. Of course, he's an American-born player from the Boston area, went to Boston College. I don't know if there's any interest from the Bruins. I'm sure he very likely grew up cheering for the Bruins, so it wouldn't be shocking if he had interest to go there. Whether or not that's reciprocal, I don't know. The Bruins are extremely tight on cap space, so barring some other moves, it's probably a little bit unlikely at right now. But we'll see. Teams will be very interested in Colin White. He's an interesting player. He had a real solid showing in college back in those days too, when he played for the Team USA, the World Juniors. I know him and Clayton Keller were on a line together, and he had a really good junior tournament, and things were really looking up for White, but he just hasn't materialized. He's mostly been a center, but he's had to play some wing in Ottawa. And like I said, he's just one of those players. When you hear the other Sens players talk about their teammates and the interviews and things like that, like Colin White is an absolutely beloved player in that room. There's going to be a lot of sad players that to see him go. Like I know they've grown very, very close to him. He's apparently a really comical, funny guy, which you don't always see on the ice. But from that perspective, you hate to see it because like he's just one of those likable players, in my opinion, that you kind of want to root for and cheer for. And I certainly hope that he finds his game and finds an opportunity to play elsewhere and get himself back on track for his career, because I still think there's a lot of potential there. So we'll see what happens. White's buyout officially will go on the books here. The Sens save some additional cap space. Makes you wonder as well. The Senators have been rumored to be looking for another top 6 forward. That number 7 overall pick of the 2022 draft is reportedly in play for the right deal. They've had talks with other teams about 2 or 3 different top 6 guys. So it'll be interesting to see if they're maybe trying to free up some extra room here to make a bigger move. We'll see, because they still have lots of RFAs to sign. It sounds like they have lots of cap space with like $27 million, and they do, but they still got to sign Josh Norris, who's going to be commanding big bucks. His deal is going to be comparable to like Kachuk. He's not going to be far off from that. Hopefully he'll sign a 6-7 year contract with around that $7-8 million mark, because he was really tearing it up this year. He's deserving of that. You get Matthew Joseph, Alex Formanton are going to need likely bridge deals, but that's going to be at least a couple million each, if not a little bit more. You've got Eric Brandstrom needs a new deal as well. They've already announced that they're not signing Victor Mete and Adam Gaudette. And then after that, they still have a few options there. They're trying to trade Matt Murray if they can. So there's lots of happening in Ottawa. It just makes you wonder if that maybe this could be a calculated move to coincide with something else. But it's something I suspect it might happen anyway, so I wouldn't necessarily feed too much into that just yet. We'll have to wait and see. But let me know your thoughts on this buyout for the Ottawa Senators and Colin White. Where's a good landing spot for him to continue his NHL career? I'm sure there'll be lots of teams that will gladly sign him to a 1-year contract and give him an opportunity to come in and prove himself and get his career back on track. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news around the 2022 NHL draft coming up on Thursday night, all the latest trade rumors and UFA rumors as well heading into free agency. So make sure you subscribe and stick around so you're up to date with everything going on around the NHL. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.